My project started out with Perception Pilot 12 with the pedal power and standard rudder. And my plan is to change this rudder out to attach a trolling motor to it, similar to what I did previously in another video, only this one is going to have an electric speed controller operated remotely, much like a guy did on a YouTube channel that I will reference in the description down below the video. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details on this because you can watch his video and he puts a pretty good description on how to do it. The only thing that I changed up on it was that I put it in this little box from Amazon rather than mounting it into this, because he just used the whole trolling motor, whereas what I did was attach a rudder to it. Now, the rudder I got from Amazon, it's a Bigsby adapter, and your alternative to doing this is to spend about $1,200 for that motor there, plus a battery pack. That has, by the way, the wireless remote built into it, which gave me the idea. So, first step was to adapt this rudder to be attached to the motor. So I had to take this off, which had all the wiring up into it, going up into the handle, which has a switch built up into here that I moved over into this little circuit box so that I'll have a backup in case my remote fails. I have these connectors that will connect into the wiring, which will connect to the battery, which I'll show you in a minute. So that just in case all this fancy wireless stuff breaks out in the, while I'm 5 miles out in the water, rather than pedaling or rowing back, I'll be able to hook up to this. It's pretty light, pretty easy to do. Making it with PVC that was melted and flattened out. I'll kind of give you a little show on that. Although there's really a good video of that in YouTube as well. So that's what we had to do there, was to create, instead of having metal wrapped around here, I flattened. This is PVC. This is also PVC that was flattened out. So what happens is, when you want to flatten out PVC, you have a piece of PVC that's like that, like a rolled up piece of paper. You cut it down the middle, you heat it, with a heater. You can put it in your oven or you can use a heat gun, and what happens is that will slowly peel out like this. Now what you want to do is flatten it out, put it in between some boards, put some weights on top of it, and then it will be just as flat as that paper. Then you can reheat it and curl it around and shape it to the motor like that, and then use the hardware that you get with this Bigsby adapter and attach it. Now the trick of doing this is to cut it just right and to use clamps and hose clamps to squeeze here and around here to be able to get a good fit. Now I discovered that what happens is when I mounted this on the kayak, that there wasn't enough rudder below the water to really make a turn if you're not actually running the motor. So I used some of the PVC to make an extension, which is similar to the extension that comes with the adapter, that if this motor were off, which you can disconnect these bolts here and put that up into there, and now you've got just a regular rudder. So it's highly adaptable, all kinds of different things you can do with it in order to mount it. And I went through this pretty quick. It took me a while, a few hours in the hot garage a day for a couple of weeks to do this. Really wasn't that intensive, but it's pretty easy to do. The most annoying thing on it was having to build a switch that was long enough to fit outside of the box, sort of like the guy did on the other video. Plus having to buy a one-time use program card to change the program. So another time-consuming part of this project was making this battery box. Now I'm sure people can make lots of better looking battery boxes than this, but this mainly just shows the battery that I bought, just like for the other project. The wiring inside, that's where the battery connections go to either the remote or to the actual rheostat switch that came with the motor that operates the cigarette lighter plug. The switch over here that operates the voltometer. I also put in the legally required kill switch for marine motors over here. I made a conversion adapter that will be able to plug into either the spotlight that's mounted up here by magnet or to my depth finder, either one. So anyway, that's the battery box project that operates the whole thing. The other thing that I had to do was to buy some 2-part foam, this closed cell so it floats, that I needed to use to reinforce the back of the kayak, because the weight of the motor, when you push down on this would flex and eventually that would break. So I stood the kayak up on its end, similar to some videos that are online, poured the 2-cell, there's 3 batches that I poured in there. You pour a batch, let it set, and 2 more batches and let them set, so that supports the weight of the new motor. One of the other adaptations that I had to do was a little metalworking. This is called a bayonet pin. Now if you order one from a place called Top Kayaker, it will come like this, but this is about $20 more than what I paid for it on Amazon. So it comes in with a straight steel tube like this. So I had to cut it off to length to match the rudder fitting that came with the kayak, and then drill out these areas here to make it fit, and then you can see that that's had to be flattened there, kind of a half moon shape, so it would fit in there and lock. To remove this rudder, you got to twirl it around and lift it out. To put this one back in, twirl it, and that bayonet pin locks it. So as you can see, that motor fits just below the water line, but it gives you a little bit more shallow depth running than you get with the 14-inch. Depth that you have to go for the pedal power. So we got the rudder connected. I got the battery box just sitting up on top of the milk crate, but it will fit inside there. The power is connected to the remote box, and then the motor is also connected to the boat box. I've got a little latch here and some bungee cord to keep it strapped on, and there's the switch, which will fit there or anywhere else that that little clip allows. So step by step, you turn it on. You hear a little beep. You see a green light. You probably can't see it, but there's a fan turning in there. And then when you turn that switch on, you get a little, and then you get a solid green light, and then you move that toggle switch. So moving the toggle switch forward, and see, it's not connected, it's a remote switch. As you can see. So backwards, backwards, forwards. Here's a little bit more detail of the completed project in its stowed position, where the rudder is pulled up and then flipped up over the back of the kayak. There's a cord, paracord, that goes all the way up to the front. I'll show up to a closer look there. But here's the little bit closer look at that PVC that I did, that was bent around here, clamped, and then cut off. Holes were cut here, 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 and here. This rudder came shaped already like that, which went over this part of the motor, which went up to the pipe that goes up to the control of the regular trolling motor. I had to shave off a little bit here to make it fit. Also, I had to put another hole here to give a little bit more support. This goes directly into this little extrusion from the motor. There's nothing like that in the back, so these just connect directly to this motor. I didn't have to cut to the rudder, rather. I didn't have to cut this rudder. If you buy the one from Top Kayak, you will have to cut off a section to make it fit, plus the little notch that goes out. I also added a bolt right here that fits up on top of this, along with the catch and release part that comes with a rudder. This gives a little bit more support on here because this thing frankly weighed a lot more than I thought it would. It's a 30 horsepower trolling motor, which is 5 horsepower less than that Bigsby, so I thought it'd be okay, but I'm not completely sold on that yet. We're gonna wait and see whether or not that's going to be too heavy for this kayak. I may have to redo it with a smaller one, but we'll see for now. As you can see, I've got 2 J hooks on, one on a paracord, one on that came with it on a little stretchy cord. So you push that down, that comes off, this comes off, and this whole thing comes back down like this. Now this catches so that the motor, when it hits, it does, when you go reverse, it doesn't back up. So you can see I'm pushing that way, and that holds it. Now this, as you pull forward, that releases the lock. You pull it up, around, and attach it again with those J hooks. The other side of the motor looks like this. You can see the other side of the 4 bolts. You also see the wire that have with a protective cover. It goes all the way up to the ends. It was a little better than the slit coil electric covers that I used on the other project. Also, you can see I used black silicone to fill in this hole. I had to cut that off. I tried every way I could to heat this up and to twist it and turn it, and I couldn't get the pipe off of it like it shows in some of the other videos on YouTube, so I just cut it off and then fill that into about here with silicone, because that goes out into an open section all the way down to the electronics part of the motor, so you got to fill that up and make that watertight. So I'll fill it from about here all the way up here. I'll put this little wrap on there to keep this from pulling out, putting pressure on the silicone, and that goes up to here, and it feeds through this little loosely fitting tie wrap all the way up to the end with the connections for the these are, if you use them both, that's for the manual connection, remember, and this one is just for the or one of them, the red and black, is used for the motor controls to the electronic speed control. So this is the connection that I have up here where I'll be seated. There's a cord that goes all the way to the back that pulls it up and down. I'll show that in a minute. There's a starter handle that I got as a package along with the other project. There's a little J hook right there that holds it all up in place, or gives a little bit more hold for it. By the way, thanks to the guy who showed me how to do this, where to get it, some explanations, and thanks to the guys that showed me how to heat and mold PVC pipes.